You sure about that?
No.
Are you sure you're still here?
Pretty tired. I'm only.
You are here physically, but not mental.
Exactly.
Searchable as reptiles.
One of the first times we had a studio audience. Is it? How many? Oh, we have Brian Gundy. I think has been our only ever.
At our house, like the very first one.
All right, but if you guys aren't good at being a quiet studio audience, I'm gonna have to ask you guys to leave. I'm just saying.
Can we hold up cards like applause?
Oh my God. No, you got to be quiet.
Well, you guys are already making a bunch of noise.
Yeah,
right
you
now.
already blew it.
We started recording about 10 minutes ago, and you guys just come on in and just clap, clap, slam, slam. Hi, you care if we stay here?
Smash, smash,
Do it.
Johnny Walker, Blue Label.
Do you guys
The
want to try
Balvenie.
any of this stuff before we?
There's a retic coming out of that bag.
You have to grab I think there's cups over there, or down by the ice thing or something.
You're gonna have to get that mic like in front of your
Lower?
face. The great thing was kind of get it like where it's like pointed up at you. Kind of like what ended up being perfect was how we had them last time, where they're pointed right up at our faces, just like that. Yeah, that thing that ended up working perfectly. Like put them in the crotch, the old crotch shot.
The Balvenie.
Balvenie.
We haven't opened that yet.
We can open it.
We can open it now.
It's the Balvenie.
Yeah.
Caribbean rum cask.
Caribbean or
Yeah.
Caribbean?
I like to say Caribbean, but I'm open to Caribbean as well.
It depends on what you're talking about. If it's the Pirates of the Caribbean,
Yeah.
everything else is Caribbean.
The rum of the Caribbean.
Yeah, like Caribbean boas.
Well,
You don't say Caribbean boas.
you could.
You could.
You could. I mean, I haven't said that. It doesn't mean you couldn't say it.
I could. You could.
Oh, that sounded nice. Say when. Well, what are you looking up over there, Garrett?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, I'm researching.
Who's our whiskey sponsor here?
Jeff Matthews.
Jeff Matthews?
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff Matthews. Caribbean cask.
You want to read it off?
Oh,
So Jeff says he's had, he's part of like a bourbon enthusiasts group. I think they actually have a Bible study called Bourbon and Bible, and they get together and they drink and they study the Bible.
I like it.
the Holy Spirit.
No, I mean,
That was too smooth.
Single malt Scotch.
Single
whiskey.
malt spirit. So kind of an interesting group, that's for sure. But he says he's tried much more expensive ones, but he likes this one the most.
Okay.
So-
I was huge on Scotch for a long time, and then I found bourbon, and now I'm huge on bourbon in a big way in a short time. But I'm still into Scotch. The thing about Scotches is that they are generally aged in ex-bourbon casks, so it's like pre-soaked wood, and you don't get. It takes longer for it to marry.
Yeah,
with
there's
the
not
wood
much left.
Yeah, so you have to have them age longer, and what a lot of Scotches end up doing is doing finishing and things like a Caribbean cask
There you
like
go.
this.
yeah, my dad's a big Scotch guy, and the Balvenie, like he loves that. You know, he all different types of stuff, but that Balvenie, he really likes it. So.
Well,
We'll give it a shot.
I'm gonna give a shout to our audience listening to us right now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Searchables Reptiles. I'm Brian, one of your hosts. We got Garrett, another host. We
Hello.
got Bradley McEllier,
Hello, hello.
or as I like to say, Miguel. Yeah.
Mikhail. Yeah.
Miguel. Yeah.
Macalea.
Yeah.
Yeah, Garrett always says it wrong.
Macalea.
And of course, Bradley has.
No, I just say it more gringo.
I come to understand the proper way to say it is Maclier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Macalea?
Yeah.
Macolier.
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 Macalea.
Maclier. Well, I still.
Bradley
I'm
Macalier.
just gonna stick
Yeah.
with Miguel. Yeah.
It sounds cool.
Macalea.
It sounds cool.
Well, I asked you. I remember I asked you once. I was like, "Is it like Miguel? Yeah." And you're like, "Yeah."
I was like, yeah, go
Yeah,
for
that's
it.
good.
Mikhail, yeah.
And then we were supposed to obviously have your co-host from Connected by Creatures because you guys are the location sponsors for this particular podcast here at the end of
Zach Nava.
Yeah,
Zach Nava.
definitely.
The only
By the way,
problem
every
is-
time we say Zach Nava, you got to take a drink of whiskey.
Drink and not honor of Zach. He's
To
not here.
Zach. To Zach.
The truth is he can't be on this one because he talks too much for 4 people to be on one.
Which is true. We of course, we do Connected by Creatures every Friday, 8 p.m. Central Time, and we normally only have one guest, and our guests sometimes struggle to get a word in with Zach. So.
I don't know what it's like to have a podcast host like that. Co-host, I should say.
I think we feel each other's pain, Brian.
I'm saying I have no idea what it's like to have a podcast host that speaks so much that you struggle to get a word in, even as a guest, which is why we stopped having guests. Because
this is bottled up frustration from like 2 years ago.
No, actually, our last couple podcasts have been really good. We decided maybe we won't have guests ever again, unless they're friends.
Yeah, and of course, I consider both of you.
Don't
friends.
hold us to that, folks.
Yeah, don't hold us to it. But I mean, speaking of the NBC Arlington show, this was my first show back since COVID. I know, Garrett, you've been maybe to the Steel City.
Yeah, like a smaller local show.
Smaller local show.
This is the first big show,
first
national
big
show.
Yeah, it's definitely ours. The last show that we went to was this same show in February of last year, and when Tinley got canceled, this is the first one that we've been to since then. So.
And on
What'd
that
you guys
note,
think?
Congratulations.
Yeah. So all right. So I don't. Probably not everybody that's listening got to go to the show. So I had some, I guess, expectations or whatever. Not on purpose. I was just kind of more like predictions of how the show would go after being away from a show like the National Association of Reptile Breeders Convention. Something that was that big for over a year, and then coming back into it. And it was not really what I expected, but...
In what way? So I didn't get to walk around the show hardly. I literally did an uncut video. I walked around the show for 30 minutes until my camera stopped recording and went back to the booth. I did a bunch of interviews, but I literally was around the show for a half hour, 2 hours before the end of the day. And that's all I saw of the show.
Yeah, but you were here all weekend. You were at the...
Oh, yeah. No, I was at the auction. Yeah, I was hanging out with everybody. As
USRC
far as actually
auction,
inside the show at the venue.
Yeah,
right. I didn't get too much of a feel for like what was going on like on people's tables. I literally got a quick glance through my camera lens at what's going on people's tables. So I'm just curious what you meant. Like,
yeah, I'm interested in the expectations that you're saying.
Expectations.
So one of the things like maybe these were just dumb assumptions or whatever, but I was thinking they're probably going to be, in any show like this, you have certain people that are nationally known. They ship their reptiles everywhere. Everybody like that I've ever talked to did great last year during COVID. They sold more snakes than they usually sell. A lot of people sold out when they don't typically sell out. However, there's a whole lot of people that rely mostly on show revenue when it comes to selling their reptiles.
Right.
They do a circuit. They go from show to show to show to show. And generally, these are people who do more like impulse buys, right? Because like online, like, I don't know, if you breed ball pythons, Justin Kabilka.
Right.
But you're probably not going to wait to a show to try to buy a snake from him. You might barely get to talk to him at a show. Hopefully you do. But the easiest way to buy from him is just go to his website or,
And, to that point, like people who are, investing in animals as far as breeding projects, like, what you're looking for,
you have something specific.
And you can find that specific animal on Morph Market or on whoever's page, and you can get that animal instead of having to come and look through stock at a show. So
now, I do know that like customers have come to me and say, well, I wanted to talk through things with you because I don't know what I want, so I wanted to see everything there and have you talk me through it so that I could buy something. The only problem is if you're busy at a show, which, like me, I'm generally very busy as far as trying to say hi to everybody that's in the booth, you're far less likely to get that half-hour conversation or whatever. You know what I mean? If you're lining up against 3,000 other people and there's only 16 hours total, or it's less than that, but you know what I'm saying, at a show, you're not going to get that half hour. Do the math, and
even
and
the people
figure
that I bring on for guests for interviews, like we get about 10, 15 minutes of
barely, right.
And then it's like they have to get back to their booth because I like to have people on that are like Bob Clark comes to this show a lot. He was there. I got to have him on as a guest, and I know I'm trying to be A, respectful of his time, and B, it's just kind of the perfect length for the in-person for me with the recorded interviews. And he, but his snake was the only one that pooed on the table the entire show.
Well, and to Bob's credit, man, shout out to Bob Clark because he gave me, 5-10 minutes of his time to do something for YouTube and showed me animals and talked to me about stuff. And, Bob's huge. Like, everybody knows who Bob Clark is. And for him to give me that time, like, I really appreciate it. And then I saw him right after that come and sit down with you. And, there's Bob's booth. There's always a ton of people right there. Because Bob has cool animals. And, he's really good about showing people and talking to people. So,
Well,
yeah,
that is what we go to the shows for.
right.
It's just that it's very hard to coordinate anything or make sure that happens.
So I'm still curious. I don't
Okay,
feel like
okay,
you
so
answered. How was is different from your expectations?
So
What were your
I thought
expectations?
My
and how was it different?
expectations was going to be that everybody would be very high in inventory. At least these people that sell locally. Like, I haven't sold anything for a year and a half. I got everything from last year and everything from this year for sale. So I thought there would be like huge inventory of reptiles. And then what I was also thinking was, as vendors, it's kind of it's a big pain to go to shows. Even if you love it, it's just a tremendous amount of work.
Takes a lot of effort for sure.
Right. And so a lot of us have been spoiled with online sales for the year. So I figure, okay, so vendor count is going to be low because a lot of them are like, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, the national guys I thought were going to be low. The local guys I thought were going to be real high. And then I just kind of assumed, like, it's Arlington and stuff like that. I thought there was going to be a lot of people who haven't been to big national shows showing up. So I thought that the amount of people coming through the doors to attend the show was going to be huge. So it was a little bit off. I mean, first of all, there wasn't a huge inventory. There wasn't anybody that's like, I've got 50 of one kind of snake.
I agree.
Everybody just had a couple of little, seemed like, not in a bad way, but like the scraps. You know what I mean?
Picked
like
over.
One of these and one of those and one of these. Yeah.
Because
yeah,
everybody's snakes got bought online through COVID.
Well, I know. Okay, but then a lot of national vendors showed up, which was the opposite of what I thought. There wasn't a whole lot of local guys. Most of the local guys were just in there walking around. I would have thought that would be the opposite.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
And then it wasn't a bad show. It wasn't like a lot of people didn't show up, but it wasn't a particularly busy or crowded show.
I definitely see what you're saying. And honestly, I expected Saturday to be, huge line out the door, people, people waiting to get in. And
Right.
I definitely see what you're saying. No, it wasn't like I've seen before with national shows.
Okay.
And today, being the second day of the show, it's always a little bit slower, but like it slowed down quite a bit today by about 1 o'clock.
I feel like Arlington was always like kind of slower though, like compared to Tinley or compared to Pomona. Like I never felt like the aisles are as crowded as.
But today I think was like on par or slightly less than your average Arlington show this time.
So definitely not under. It was just like right at average.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think it was a little under.
I think
it was a little under.
There's moments when it was moving pretty good. I mean I guess
So
we'd have to get the
think
raw
about
actual
this.
numbers.
Throughout the weekend, did you meet more new people that you hadn't seen, or was it more like groups of people that you kind of always see at this show, like the hardcore fans that come round?
I met
and
a
round
ton of people that I
and
never
round.
met before at this show.
Did you?
Yes, like
Okay.
maybe just as much, if not like for how many people there were through the door, compared to something like
Yeah.
Tinley where there's more people through the door, or something like Pomona where there's way more people through the door. I say per capita, I met more new people at this show than I have yet.
But do you accredit that to your growth over this, last year? And
That could be.
you've reached more people through your platforms, and now you have a broader audience.
That's
In
Or I wonder
comparison
even
to-
if, like
Quite possible.
Bradley, you and I were walking around the show and you were stationary and never knew where to find you. So maybe it was that too.
yeah, that helps.
Where
Right.
like if I sat down, I had a big Reach Out Reptiles logo behind me, then would people know? Because I was walking around, and especially when people are wearing masks and stuff, it's hard to recognize people.
That's why I wanted to come to this show as the first show, because I heard Texas was wide open, and I didn't want to go to a show where they're letting in limited numbers of people, and everybody was like masks required, and I'm fine with masks in public and public safety. I'm fine with that. But however, I did not want to go back to my first reptile show.
It's weird
and
for
have
the
it weird where I
convention.
can't see people's faces.
And honestly, man, like something that means a lot to me with this show is that sense of normalcy, with everybody wearing masks over the last however many months and everybody being cooped up and quarantined and stuff like that. It feels good to come to something like this and see your friends and to see other people and have that sense of going back to normal. Like it just feels great.
That's how it felt to me too. I
It's
had
just reminding
I
me-
had no expectations of this show. I just knew I was going, and I was hoping it was going to be great.
Yeah.
And it literally felt like every other NARBC show I've been to in the past. That's how it felt to me.
Okay, interesting. I just had a funny moment where I was standing outside the In Your Face Exotics booth, which is owned by Gavin Bowie, and I didn't expect him to be the show. In fact,
I expected the opposite because I saw Amanda out there.
Yeah.
I gave her a hug, and she's like, I was like, "Is Gavin coming?"
That's
She's like,
his
"No,
wife.
no, yeah, Amanda Bow, yeah." She said, "No, he's not coming." Like he's
right,
still,
yeah. Everyone said he wasn't coming.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was sitting there talking to Jake Klotz at his booth, and he walked up, but he had a ball cap on, sunglasses, a big mask, and a hoodie. So all you could see was this dude in like with a bunch of
The
beards.
Unabomber.
Yeah, he did look like the Unabomber, but with a beard sticking out of the bottom of his mask. And I'm talking to Jake, and nobody expects him to be there. And he walks up and he goes, "Hey," like right in the middle of our conversation.
Yeah.
And then we kind of stopped, and we're like, "Hey," and he's like, "Hey." He didn't say anything. I did not recognize him. Jake did not recognize him, and he was just standing there. I thought he was just like, okay, some random dude. At first, I thought maybe he wants to talk to Jake because Jake was vending from that table. So I kind of stepped back so he could talk to him. I was like, "Did you need to talk to Jake?" He's like,
No.
"Nah, I'm good." And they just stood there, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I kind of just started talking to Jake, and he just like took a half step closer to me. He's like standing real close to me, like as I'm talking to Jake. I'm like, "Can I
A little comfortable.
help you, sir?"
Little comfortable for some of you maybe didn't know.
Right.
6 feet, sir. Read the mask.
And shout out to In Your Face Exotics. That's one of the only people I purchased any animals from this
You
weekend.
did?
I did.
What'd you buy?
Uh,
I didn't know that.
yeah, Katie actually picked up a female lavender Motley GC.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Shout out to them. And the reason we bought it from them is I wound up winning their donation to the U.S. Ark. So at the
Oh,
auction,
right
I bought there. So.
How
Shout
much
out to
was
them.
the voucher that they gave?
500 and
Wow,
2
that's
shirts.
generous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's
was
cool.
very generous.
What did you? Much did it cost to win that?
I wound up bidding $375.
Oh, deal. Got a deal.
There you go.
And US Arc made some money.
And that's what it's all about.
I got a good deal on a couple of vouchers. I got a $1,000 voucher to ARS. Sorry, Brian. And then I got a $2,000 voucher to Jason Amos for ball pythons.
2,000.
Oh, nice.
$2,000 voucher. So I got $3,000 in vouchers I'm taking home.
And how much did you win those for?
Oh, I kind of spend. I paid $1,200 for the $2,000 voucher.
Okay.
But it was mostly because I had that Johnny Walker Blue Label and I wanted something to drink for the table. And then I was like, oh, I guess I won a ball python.
I didn't
So,
realize
I'm
there
gonna
was a
take it back.
voucher in that.
Oh yeah, it was a $2,000 voucher.
Yeah, I didn't realize
Actually,
that.
so I don't want a ball python, but I was gonna take it back for Rob. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I'll give that to Rob. That'll be fun. I'm sure he would like that. Yeah. So I.
Answer it. Put it on a speaker. Put it on
Oh,
the podcast.
all right, hold on. Julie Johnson's calling me. Hey, Julie.
Hey, it's Jericho. Me and my mom were
Jericho, you're on the podcast.
Jerica.
We're trying to get a towel because we're literally I'm soaking in my dress right now, and I went to the wrong room. I was like Brian, and they were like Riley. I was
Can
like,
we have the studio audience take
Jerica,
a towel
You're on the
downstairs?
podcast right now. Say hi to our audience.
Say hi.
Hello, can you please tell me your actual room number? Because I went to 910.
914.
Oh my gosh, 914. You guys didn't hear me calling Brian?
No.
My phone's recording
Okay,
us right
well,
now.
We'll be back. I'm getting some iced coffee.
Thanks,
Oh, that sounds
Jerica.
like a good idea when you're dripping wet in a dress.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye,
Okay,
Jer.
bye-bye.
That's Jericho. Oh, that was actually probably the funniest part of the entire auction. Right? If you guys haven't been to
my
an
gosh,
if you guys have
yes.
not been to an NARBC auction, I mean, obviously I'm not talking to you guys sitting here with me, and you haven't been to one where Brian Potter is the MC. He just goes in
as hard as possible.
He's really
Very-
just being himself turned
it's
up
very
turbo.
adult.
Yeah, it's very
oriented.
very
adult.
savage.
But there was a moment when Jericho had known about this.
Let me
Julie's-
preface for those people
Can I
that don't-
speak without being run over by you for a fucking second?
Maybe.
Good God.
Maybe.
Jesus Lord. So Jerica is Julie's daughter. Lindy Johnson's daughter is Julie, and Jerica is Lindy's granddaughter. And she was super worried about. She had heard about like Brian. She was kind of worried, like I hope he's not gonna like. Does he? I told her, yeah, he'll just pick on people like randomly in the crowd, like all for fun. She's like, I really hope he doesn't pick on me. I really don't want to be picked on at all. Like
She did say that?
Yeah, she said
I
that
didn't
because I
know
told her
that.
before the auction that like this he does this. I was like, it's super funny. I was telling her all about this at the show before the auction even happened, and she's like,
I didn't know that
I really
part.
don't want this. She's sitting next to me, and she's like, I feel like he's gonna be like, I don't want him to pick on me or anything. But then they decide, we get Jesse on the horn. We're like, you guys need to start bidding on stuff for Freedom Breeder. Because part of the family, and so they're bidding, and that's when he starts taking notice, and he realizes Jerica is a beautiful
This is what I was
girl.
going to preface. Somebody asked me this weekend,
Okay.
is Julie or Jerica the hot one? Because they saw my video where the,
I heard
the
that
girls gave me a
conversation.
thing, and my answer was yes.
Yes. And
That's
so-
all I was going to preface
that's
it with,
fine.
just
I'm
so you
sorry.
guys
I'm sorry.
understand.
I'm
They're
sorry.
cute.
I don't mean to curse at you for running over me. I just get used to it.
Well, in the auction, to the point that Brian's making.
I hadn't finished my story.
Don't
Okay,
run him over,
finish your story,
Bradley.
Brian. Finish your
Macalea.
story.
So she starts to bid, and that's when she catches Brian's attention. As we all mentioned, she's very beautiful, and Brian noticed that right away. He was like, "Oh my God, I want you to be."
Yeah, he just stopped the auction
he
for a
stopped
minute.
the auction and started hitting on Jericho.
Started proposing to
Started
her,
proposing,
basically.
literally.
Wound up
proposing to
forgetting
her.
the bid that was going on.
Forgetting what the
and
bid
everything.
was, yeah, and then somebody I think somebody went up to him whispered hey, that's Lindy's granddaughter, they're probably trying to maybe get him back off. He's like, that's Lindy's granddaughter. This just got way better for me, mom and daughter. This is you're just going on I just can't wait. Please let's go. He just full horn dog in front of the entire crowd.
Yeah, he's like, Dolly Parton's not in the spank bank anymore. It's these two.
And he was just like, I hope that no. And Jericho was the whole time hoping that wasn't going to happen.
How did she feel about it afterwards?
She was okay. I was obviously that's a compliment, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty
We could ask her if she ends up walking in for a towel.
Well, she ended up winning. They went up against Kim Bell, and Kim Bell is ridiculously generous
Yes.
during the auctions. I always win to Kim Bell. I had actually told Julie about 30 seconds before those items went up that they were bidding on. I was like, stinking Kim Bell, she's so generous. I always lose to her in an auction. Even when
Get
I'm
her all
trying to
ramped
throw
up.
down big, I'll go up to $2,000 on a book or something, and she'll still win. And it's dang it. So I was telling her that, and then Julie and Jerica ended
come
up
over here a second,
winning.
please.
They
Just
they
for a second.
ended up winning.
Jerica.
We got towel. There's a towel hanging on the back of the door there.
Come here. I want to just.
And they ended
quick
up
question.
winning. What did you guys win, Jerica? It was like a coffee mug.
Here, take my-
sit
take my
sit
seat
in
for a second.
Cusco's chair for.
No, I'm literally drenched.
Yeah, that's all
You're
right.
okay.
We're good.
I'm getting kind of hot, so.
So what was it that you guys were bidding on in the auction, and why did you want it so bad?
Which one?
We're talking about
At the U.S. Arc auction.
Oh, the cups.
Yeah, it was like a coffee cup that said U.S. Arc on it.
Yeah, they're like
right?
tumblers or something.
Because my mom drinks tea, brings 5 cups a day to work, and so I was like, okay, we'll bid on this.
And what did you guys end up winning them for?
500 each or something. Mom, how much did we get them for? 1,100.
$1,100 for 2 coffee mugs.
well, now that we have you sitting here,
Oh boy.
The real question was, how did you feel?
how do you feel?
Oh, yes.
By Brian, 'cause
You-
I know one of your things. I was telling the story.
Here, Brian, take this.
that you
Take my
didn't-
mic, Brian. Here.
I was telling the story already about how you didn't want to necessarily. I told you before we went to the auction. I was like, Brian likes to pick on people in the crowd.
Yeah,
You're like,
that I was
I really don't want to
concerned.
be the person that gets picked on. Is that going to happen? I was like, not, probably not. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he went in on you harder than anybody at the show. That was literally the highlight of the auction for people watching. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I was just a little scared because you scared me.
I was scared because you scared me.
I just thought he was just gonna pick on me, but it wasn't it's not like he was picking on me. It was just he was being funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Definitely.
That's the way. I mean, he's one of those guys that has a way of picking on people in a way that they love.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
Blake Stewart was sitting at our table, and he's like, "Yeah, that guy. Who is that guy?
That Polish-looking guy.
Yeah, jacked Pollock over there. Or whatever, you know what I mean? He's just joking around, and I don't know. Even when I repeat it, it sounds terrible.
Yeah, and that's the thing,
But
man.
he
Like,
has a way of making it work.
yeah, Brian can just go hard on somebody, and it's comical to that person and to
Yeah.
everybody else in the room.
Right,
You know,
right,
so
right.
yeah, I love it when he does the auctions.
Yeah.
He was funny. Everyone came up to me and was like, "Oh, there's Brian's wife." I was like, "Oh, great."
That's hilarious.
Like,
That was
that's
pretty
nice.
cool. Well, I think if you win a couple of coffee mugs at a U.S. Arc auction, everybody in the reptile industry remembers who you are after
Yeah.
that. So that was a good splash for you for coming
Yeah,
and
that was
representing.
good because I've never been to like an auction.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was
Perfect.
So now that you've been to one, are you interested in coming back and doing more of them?
yeah. Well, hopefully we can come back. Are we planning on bringing Coco to Chicago?
I think that's going to be,
Yeah. Let's hope we are able to go.
Sweet. So everyone's gonna have to come to the Chicago show. That's
Yeah.
the one in June.
Schaumburg.
Schaumburg.
Wait, yeah, right.
Macaleaburg.
That
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be
We'll
great.
be there. Hopefully Jesse will come.
Yeah, definitely.
Get
The
the
whole
Freedom Breeder
fam.
gang.
Jesse's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, so if you guys are listening, you'll have to stop by the Freedom Breeder booth. Say hey. Say thanks for sponsoring Brian.
I need a towel.
Thank you, Jericho. Here's your towel right there.
Like literally.
What I was gonna say earlier was to Brian's point about
Sorry.
about warning people ahead of time with
Perfect timing.
the U.S. Arc auctions and everything. When we were sitting at the table, like right in the middle of it, I looked at because Phil started it because Brian Potter wasn't.
Right.
And
Well, he was getting his
when
drinks,
when
so
Brian
that's
Potter
my
got up
line.
on the stage, I told Blake Stewart, I was like, dude, he's gonna just start going off on people. And Blake looked at me and he was like, what? And I was like, just watch, man. And it wasn't 4 minutes later, he said that shit about Blake that you were just talking
Right.
about, and Blake was like, "Oh, I get it now." Yeah.
Yeah. He actually he texted Lindy right after the auction and told him that he wanted to marry because
Brian Potter did?
because Lindy texted somebody like either Julie or Jericho and was like Brian said he wants to marry blah 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 or something.
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
It was funny. It was
No.
a good auction. It was again like that's what I was. It was exactly as I felt it should be. If it didn't feel any different, then it didn't feel weird like at all.
I'll tell you one thing that was weird. It bothered me a little bit, and I'm gonna bring it up. I guess it bothered me that much. And I usually don't get bothered by stuff. I let everybody like a live and let live kind of a thing. But there were quite a few people that wanted to like talk to me or hang out or whatever after the show. I mean, you're there to network and everything. So there was like kind of the Green Tree Python gang that they're like, hey, we're all going to this place. You should come. And that was cool. And I said, you know what? That's dinner. Like they're getting dinner. I said, the U.S. Arc auction is there. So I got to go support U.S. Arc. You know what I mean? And a lot of them donated and stuff. So this isn't a bad way. But then there was another group. Who was it? It was like a couple of guys that are local to Texas, boa breeders that want to kind of hang out with me, talk shop and stuff like that over dinner Saturday night. I said I can't go. Then the retic guys, there's a gang, hanging out over there in the corner, a bunch of reticulated python breeders, and they're like, hey man, don't forget us just because super dwarfs are popular now. You got to come to dinner with us. When are you going to dinner? 6:30. I said, well, the auctions starts at 6.
Right.
I got to support U.S. Arc. And they're like, oh well, we're gonna go to dinner. And I was just like, these large groups of people that have, established breeding businesses, and to me, it's like especially the retic guys, but not in particular. I mean, at this point, everybody in the reptile industry needs to at least have a U.S. Arc membership. You know what I mean? A lot of those guys did donate to the auction.
Right.
But then you got to go there and you got to bid at the auction because even if you're not winning anything and stuff like that,
Every bid brings it up.
Yeah,
it pushes
I'll
it
bid
up.
just not even to try and win. Just
yeah,
to bid
you
and be
bid
like,
stuff
Yeah,
up,
push
and
it
of
up.
course sometimes you win those,
Yeah.
so whatever.
Like
but
that
then you're
cake.
supporting. Yeah, didn't you buy like a $500 cake or
Yeah,
something?
that happened.
So, but I mean, no, I was getting pretty pissed. So by the time the third group of people said, "Nah, we're gonna go to dinner and hang out instead of go to the U.S. Arc support auction," I was like, "Oh, that's fine." I was like, "Just give me the money that you're gonna bid, and I'll buy you something. It'll be a surprise." And they just stared at me with blank faces, and I was like, "Seriously, guys, you guys are the like there were not a lot of retics at this show.
Right.
There's a handful of breeders." I was like, you guys are the main ones that need to be benefiting.
Yeah.
You're the main one. You have the most to lose.
And
If USARK loses,
Right.
you need to be causing them to win. And yeah, so
the retic fight's the big fight,
Stop
Re-
shaming people
retics,
into joining
berms.
USR. You win more bees with honey.
no, yeah,
Salt.
I'm not shaming anyone.
I am.
People should be supporting.
They should.
Yeah, here's your honey. Go support USARK,
And it's
and
fun.
support our industry. Honestly, to that point right there, if I came to a show, I would not care what happened. Everyone's always like, well, I don't want to win anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like, who cares if you want to win anything? Like, I don't care. I just told you I won a $2,000 ball python voucher or whatever. But if I was to come to a show, I would come for Friday during the setup so I could say, not vending, so I could say hi to everybody who was vending, see all my old friends and be like, what's up? And then I would go to Saturday night's auction and then I could leave. Because I don't need to walk around like with the crowd and see the reptiles and stuff like that. Like when I do that, it's so that people can who don't know me or don't have maybe like access to me because I don't have a public facility or whatever can see me in person, say hello, have a conversation, introduce themselves. And that was great and I love that. But my main priority is like I like to say hey and I like to go to the USARK auction.
Those auctions are where it feels like where the most feels like one big happy family is at the auction.
And they're at all the big national shows. So that's the biggest difference you're telling me about the Steel City show. Like, I'm like, well, I mean, I don't want to say it's not a real show because the Steel City show is great, but they don't have a USARK auction. It's a one-day local show.
Well, Phil also can't be at all these different shows throughout the year. He's
It
got
doesn't have
actual
to
work
be-
to do.
doesn't have
but
to
Phil
be
doesn't
Phil.
have to be there.
That's true.
to-
It doesn't.
They
have to be.
can
They can
set
have their own
up-
auction. You're right. No,
I
you're-
would run the auction.
Sure, you're
in
right.
Pittsburgh.
I know Bob Vu does that at like the Atlanta show or something. He runs a USARK auction out there,
Yep.
I believe.
I would do that.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, I don't know. Support the USARK auction.
You and Bob kind of got in a little bidding war on something there at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the
he
knife
won.
set.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
knife set.
Yeah,
the
the
Those
knife
knife
set,
sets always go pretty high.
That was a nice set. That was the best knife set I've seen yet.
Yeah, all
It almost
Damascus
went
knives.
really cheap. It was gonna go for like $800. Usually, these knife sets are like $3,500, $5,000. So I was like, shoot, I'll bid on that. And
Yeah.
then Bob Vu was bidding, and it started to slow down a little bit, and he's going up by like 25 at a time. So I threw down like another 200 on top, and I was like, "Come on, Bob!
Yeah, it was
Come
great.
on, Bob!"
That's all I was hearing behind me. Come on, Bob.
I don't think he would have even necessarily bid on it if I wasn't egging him on. But
Dude, speaking of,
I actually wanted to win that. He beat me fair and square. I got up to like $2,000 on him or something, and he's like 25, and I was like, "All right, you can have it."
But that's exactly what we're talking about, though.
well, I wasn't trying to spend Bob's money.
Well, no.
But
But
it was
the
a
simple
lot of
fact
fun
of
to do
you
that.
you bidding and y'all having fun going back and
Yeah,
forth.
yeah.
It's for a good cause. It's for USR. Like
Yep.
that's without them, we don't get to keep doing what we're doing.
Right. Yeah. That's it. Okay, you guys ready to dive deep in the shallow end?
I feel there was a moment when I was like, playing back and editing the last podcast, and maybe even the one before, building up to that one, where I had this strong thought. I was like, should we rename the podcast "Diving Deep in the Shallow End"? I was like, I feel like maybe, especially we're sitting by these pools all the time now. I was like, I feel like maybe we should change the name.
Well, but before you
Very
do
nice.
that, before you
Blake Stewart.
dive deep into the shallow end, I just want to say that it's a little funny being on this side of diving deep in the shallow end because there's been a few in the past where
Oh,
like
yeah,
you
yeah.
come to me and you're like,
Bradley,
brother.
help me. Help me. I need a question. I
Yeah.
need something to talk about.
So I'm interested in hearing what it is
yeah,
this
because
time.
I did it all by myself. This time. Are you guys proud of me? No
Yeah.
promises, though.
And Brian says he does all the work.
Yeah. See, it's the hardest part is thinking of the dive deep in the shallow end question. It's very
Yeah,
difficult.
Just turn the light off. We'll see how it looks.
But leave the weather balloon up.
Yeah, unplug the mics. It'll be fine.
All right, so
All
we're
right.
talking about we've got 3 generations of Johnsons at this show. We're hanging out with Brian Potter, enjoying him, Phil Goss. We get to talk to Bob Clark. We're, you know what I mean? Gavin Bowie, Jake Klotz, all these guys that we met. And it's kind of cool if you're a reptile nerd. You know, some of these people are very kind of foundational people.
For sure.
You know, Brian, you and I were talking about like, it's so weird to like talk to Bob Clark, and like he looks and acts exactly like he did when I was 15 buying my first Jampea. You know what I mean? And it's so weird to have him be like, "Hey Garrett, how's your breeding season this year?" And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. We were talking about it. Yeah,
not it's not in like a fangirl way, just like a.
it is for me.
It is for me too.
Oh well, all right.
Straight up.
All right. Well, there's an element to that. The thing I just think was weird is like that you are sharing a casual moment with somebody who had such an influence on your life, right?
Right.
And now you get to just kind of talk to them as not like I'm not trying to like say I'm like Bob Clark or whatever, but like as peers, you guys are sitting down and having a conversation,
Sure.
right? All right. So here's the dive deep in the shallow end question. If you could have that conversation with anybody, historical, living, dead, anybody,
Wow.
who would you sit down and have that 10 to 15 minute show conversation with? Brian, maybe somebody you would want to sit down at the booth and chat with, or Bradley just leaning over the booth. And, you know, if there was someone on the other end of the booth and they were going to talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes at a show.
So wait, does this have to be a reptile industry person?
No.
You're saying anybody.
Anybody. Anybody.
So the funny thing is, the very first person that popped in my head, and this happens a lot, was Jimi Hendrix. But then I immediately like kind of just sat with it for a second. and was
Jimi
like,
Hendrix just pops in your head a lot, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because he kind of saved my life once, like with and
Yeah.
it's a whole different story. But who I would really like to at this point, if my grandpa would show up for just like
Oh, you just took it.
10 minutes.
Yeah,
Super
man.
deep in the
That's
shallow end there, buddy.
that's a whole.
And just have a
Different level.
conversation. Because I remember I interviewed him. I was fortunate that I had him on Triple B TV one time.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he came on. He's sharing some stories about. Yeah, you might feel like you actually met my grandpa one time.
Yeah, yeah,
And-
we were
and
buddies.
Yeah, so I feel like maybe you even did. Even the way that you've convinced me so much, you meet all these people that are on my videos. My grandpa, because he's from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He's born and raised Pittsburghian, you know.
Yep.
And
You talk about him every time you come out.
yeah, because he told me all the stories about these places, and we get to go see him. And when we're in Pittsburgh, and there's more Cuscos probably in Pittsburgh than anywhere else in the United States. And I just would love to just sit down and talk with him again for a minute, you know, and just like, because we had a great relationship, my grandpa and I, like where he seemed to butt heads with just about everybody else. For some reason, he and I, even though I'm definitely was more the rebel of the family and broke tradition probably more than others, for some reason we always got along, and we never butted heads. In fact, we talked about it once at his 80th birthday party, and my dad was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, you two lovebirds. Oh, it's like just great. You guys get along so well." But and then also because of his story with the cottonmouths, to hear you know, I remember you're like, yeah, there's all those old Pittsburgh guys talking about putting cottonmouths in their pocket and walk around because they smell like cucumbers. They could find where they were at.
Copperheads, yeah.
Yeah, copperheads, right?
Yeah.
And he, he was sharing that
He
story.
used
on
to
that
tell
video.
those stories.
Yeah. I would used to pick them up. I could find them because they smell like cucumbers. And I'd take them. I'd carry them around in my front pocket at school all the time. And I remember saying, "Oh yeah, sure." So, and not just to have him to talk to with me at the show. I'd want you to be there too, so you could talk to him too about that.
That would be fun. It'd be cool to share like past versus present Pittsburgh moments.
Yes.
Because it's changed a lot. So that would be really cool.
Right.
That was too deep. I don't think I can top that. Go ahead, Bradley.
I don't. I definitely don't think I can top that. But
Well, this to be fair, this is what I've done this question kind of before on another podcast in the last couple months, and I did say Jimi Hendrix, and then somebody else brought up their grandpa, and I was like, now I feel like a complete ass. I
Oh
would much rather have
man!
my
So
grandpa
you're
than Jimi
paying it
Hendrix.
forward. Making us feel like an
appreciate it,
ass.
Brian. Thanks a
Well,
lot for
it's
that.
like yeah. If you had a chance to bring like a loved one back for a minute,
yeah.
talk to them. I don't know how much I can really think about that. I'm gonna just do something. Much
Yeah, man,
shallower
that's,
because I don't want to tackle that one.
That definitely puts a lot of intense thoughts in my head, you know, with things being left unsaid and things that I think that's diving a little too deep into the shallow
Well,
end
it
for
wasn't
me
a very
right
shallow
now.
question to start with.
True.
I mean, I was thinking like Einstein.
Uh,
I don't know.
so for me, I guess with some of the paths that my life have led me down, and some of the things that I've come across as far as where I'm trying to aim my life, I would like to probably sit down with someone from the ancient Egyptian world and try to gain some of the knowledge that I feel like has been lost. I think
really build those pyramids.
I think that there's some things that they knew that we don't, and that have been maybe either lost in translation or possibly hidden. I think there was just a lot of knowledge of people and energies and lives and stuff back then that we've lost touch with.
No, that's pretty cool.
What about you, Garrett?
Your answer made me start thinking about missing Forrest Fanning at the shows. There's a reptile guy that I'd like to talk to one more time.
Yeah, that was the first time I had seen Des since, because we're supposed to meet up at Tinley.
She looks good, right?
Yeah, she does look good, and I maybe gave her an uncomfortably long hug. Not
For
necessarily
her?
for her,
No,
but for
not
every,
for
no,
her.
no, not for her, not for her. Uncomfortably long for everybody that was standing around.
What does that matter?
I don't care. I didn't care.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just
that
saying. The other people standing around commented on it. That's my point. Like, well, that's.
I do the same. I give Des gives great hugs.
Yeah, she does give great hugs, and
I need them, and I think she needs them too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
good.
Exactly. Anyway, yeah, Forrest.
I'm gonna go Martin Luther King Jr.
I thought you said you have. We get multiple answers now. Is that
No, I said you made me think of Forrest.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But no, my original answer was Martin Luther King Jr. I think it'd be kind of cool. What I like about him was, like you were talking about, you get more bees with honey.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, was he dealing with like outrageously difficult time? I mean, he was killed over his message, right?
Yeah, right.
He was martyred for
Right.
that. But it was always the honey, versus like, and I don't mean to make it like a racial equality thing or anything like that. I just think as a man, like you can kind of contrast his approach to like Malcolm X.
Right.
I was thinking that as you were saying
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
exactly. Me too.
But the way, and both of them were very instrumental in instigating change, right? But the way that Martin Luther King Jr., like if you listen to his old speeches and stuff like that, you're like, he's just very compelling and very inspiring.
Very inspiring.
He doesn't whip you up to get upset to want to do damage to something or someone. He makes you think about yourself introspectively and find a void and then want to become a better person.
Right.
You know,
And
that's a very powerful.
And that entire idea behind that, man, like it's something that's very difficult to do, for anyone, because anyone who's had conversations about really in-depth things and things that are, really important to you, it's hard to have those conversations without emotion taking over and you letting that anger or whatever fury or it build up. And
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He can
it's
navigate
right.
so
And
well.
it is ridiculously compelling because there's conversations that we have on the daily, whether it be political or religious or
Outside of
whatever,
recording stuff.
right?
Yeah.
That people can't have. Like it's hard for two people to have that, even people that love each other, to have that conversation without getting overtly excited and emotional. And for him to be doing the things that he's doing on such a global level and such a, changing the world, and be able to do it with that passion without the fury and the anger. Like,
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
You,
it
you
is.
know what? I actually did have one of these 10-minute conversations with somebody like that, and it blew me away. I met Mr. Rogers when I was like a year old.
We
Nice.
talked about. I was a couple podcasts ago. We
Very inspiring.
talked about
Yeah, definitely formative.
Martin
in who
Luther
I became
King.
when I
Martin
met.
Luther King, and then
Oh, we did.
and Mr. Rogers.
Oh yeah.
So that when
That
you were
was
talking
the
about Martin
Phoenix
Luther King, it
one.
was like
Okay, so
wonder
did
if
I
Mr.
mention
Rogers
the
is
Stan
coming.
Lee story then?
No.
I don't remember.
Mm-mm.
All right, so you guys know Stan Lee.
Of course.
course.
I always loved his cameos in all the movies.
Right,
I was
right.
waiting
The
for where's
Marvel
Stan
guy.
at?
Yeah.
Where's Stan? Yeah.
And
Krager.
I was big with Spider-Man. Was a huge part of my child. So a lot of people probably don't know this, but during the '80s, my dad was a comic book artist for Marvel.
which is the coolest thing about Garrett, by the way.
What my dad did.
He-Man.
Thanks. Yeah, great. Thank you,
And the
brother. I
fact that he
appreciate
loves
that.
and the fact that he loves my logo.
Okay, all right,
than
all right.
Garrett's
Enough about freaking Gary Hartle. I'll tell you what. When I was a kid, my dad was such a fun person. Neighborhood kids my age would come to the house, knock on the door, and be like, "Hey, hey, Garrett, can your dad come out and play?" And I'm like, "Wow, yeah." And now I am reliving that painful childhood memory. Thanks, fellas. Dad, you're never coming on to meet my friends anymore.
I haven't got to meet your dad yet.
No, yeah, you did. He said, "Oh, I just
No.
told you the story of it."
This is the opposite. Yeah, you've actually now met my dad,
Yes.
and you guys know each other. I haven't met your dad, but
Do you feel like you have?
no.
Maybe I should vlog.
My
that.
reality is more attached to reality.
So
than-
this is what happened.
I've watched videos of your
I
dad
did
talking
too.
about different
yeah,
things.
Yeah,
so.
me too.
Yeah, he's super awkward on it. He got really weird. I was like, dude, you do like interviews on Disney and stuff. Like, why are you awkward on my YouTube channel? He's like, I don't know. I just felt like a lot of pressure right there. I was like, that's so weird.
I actually have seen videos on your stuff, but I've also seen videos outside, like talking about
Oh, you
some type
Googled
of
them or something?
Bugs Bunny thing or something
that was a
recently.
more recent
Yeah.
one. Yeah, he loved doing the He-Man interviews because there's a huge like He-Man super nerd culture. Yeah, and they're always like, "Can you please tell me what's gonna happen at the end of the season?" He's like, "I can't say anything, but," and then my dad was always getting in trouble for like leaking stuff or like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Jess is always yelling at me for telling all our industry secrets or whatever on our live streams on Wednesdays, but anyway, no. So what happened with he always worked for Stan Lee. He never got to meet Stan Lee in person, but he'd always tell me what a cool guy he was. And one of the things about Stan Lee's characters in the comic books, they were always very flawed and very human,
Right.
but with superhuman powers. So what he does is he creates the person you think you want to be, and then he tries to show you how that person actually they're even more messed up than you are.
Right.
And then he shows the heroism of the everyman. You know what I'm saying? And it's, oh my gosh, it just you think like Spider-Man is like a cartoon character, or Brian's kicking everybody out.
We're just trying to record a podcast over here.
Anyway, so it always inspires you. He always had this message where it's like it's more important for you to be you than it is for you to be Spider-Man. And I made Spider-Man, but I want you to be you. It was really cool. That's in a nutshell how I would sum up everything we love about Stan Lee's characters. So I met Stan Lee on Good Day LA. A lot of years ago, I was like the animal handler for a spread they were doing with alligators and all this kind of stuff. So I was handling the animals while the celebrity host was there. And it was funny. I was just mentioning how I usually don't fanboy, about people or whatever, because we grew up, like my dad was famous. We would go to famous people's parties, like I think I mentioned to you, like Mark Hamill's Super Bowl parties.
I feel like a
stuff
dick. I just kicked everybody out of the room. Am I a dick?
No.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
I,
Two out of
was
three ain't bad,
I was honestly waiting on you to do it a little while ago.
okay. Fine.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. You're a dick. So anyway, I was just like, nah, I don't know. That's always just kind of been a part of my life. Like, oh, I saw you on TV, and now here you are in person. And it was always interesting to see how people were different from the characters I portrayed. So I meet Stan Lee in this green room. I was just saying I don't fangirl about stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's Stan Lee. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like this guy, like, he pours himself into those stories.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of all the originals. You know what I mean? That he was really working with, like him and Steve Ditko and all those guys. So he pours himself into those, and then you connect with him, and he's, an older guy with wisdom and all this kind of stuff. And here I am, like 6-year-old Garrett. You know what I mean? Connecting with him. I was getting bullied at school that day, and then I read about a superhero who was also bullied and tempted to do something back, but he took the higher road. Those are the stories all the time. I was like, man.
Yeah.
So it was so exciting for me to meet him. And I did the fanboy thing where I was like, I'm sorry, Mr. Stan Lee, like, I don't know if you know Gary Hartle, but he's my dad. And he goes, yes, yeah, comic books, right? And he did Thor because he did a lot of Thor stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's my dad. And I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And he goes, yeah, he was very good. I was a big fan of how he. And so I was like, he actually like he gave my dad a specific comment, so or compliment. So anyway, I was like, is it okay if I take a picture with you? And he's got his whoever it would be, the agent or whatever there. And that guy's like, well, what's it going to be? And we got to sign a release form and all this kind of, you can't use it for social media and all this stuff. And
You were 6?
no. At this time, I was like 20 something
Okay.
when I met him. No, I was saying 6-year-old Garrett reading
Oh, gotcha,
comics,
gotcha.
connecting with
Yeah.
the
Social
message.
media?
No. I was 20 something. So anyway, and Stan's like, he's like, hey, you know what? His family works for Marvel. Like, he can have a picture with me. Just back off. And I was like, thank you. And
Dude, how would this podcast have been if Zach Nava was here?
Zach Nava.
am I capitalizing?
I'm
let
just
me
kidding.
let me finish the story, and you can talk the rest of the time.
I don't want to.
No, but I want you to drink for Zach
I just want
Nava.
everybody else to shut up except
Oh,
for
yeah, you're
Garrett.
right. Zach
Everybody's
Nava.
get out of the room so Gary can talk.
Do you want to hear the story?
I do, but I've heard it before, but I won't hear it again.
Then you don't want to hear it.
No, I don't remember how it went.
All right.
For
So
everyone.
he stands up.
Finish this
He's
story.
older now. He says, I'm afraid I'm not much to look at these days. And as we're like starting to pose for the picture, I pointed his head and I go, hey, with guys like you, it's all about what's in here that matters anyways. And he's like, hold off. And he stops the picture and he turns, he looks at me in the eye and he goes, no, son, no. He goes, it's about what's in here that matters. And he pokes me on my chest. You know what I mean? And I was like, Stanley makes me want to be a superhero. So that was one of those moments, like the late and great Stanley. It's amazing how he can inspire. I talked to the guy for 30 seconds, and he gave me the inspiration that I pulled from a lifetime of
Right.
reading his comic books. It's
Well,
crazy.
and going back, I know we've talked about him a little bit on here, and keep bringing his name up, but I kind of had that
Yes,
experience
Zach Nava.
with
He is
with
Sure,
I'm driving. I want some of those. Do you still have the old Carter?
I do stop the old Carter. I'm surprised he said old Carter.
and you and I have talked about this before, Garrett, that I had an experience when I was younger with Bob Clark, and
Oh, did you?
when I was in college, I was going to college for biology and everything, and I sent an email to Bob Clark, and so this would have been in like 2004. I sent an email to Bob Clark that said, I'm amazed at what you do. You're a huge inspiration. I would love to visit your place and blah, blah, blah. And it was like putting it out on a whim. Like I didn't expect him to say anything back to me. I didn't expect anything like that. But I sent the email, and like maybe 8 hours later, I got an email back from Bob Clark saying, sure, if you can make it, though, because I'm from Arkansas. If you can make it over to Oklahoma, you can definitely come toward the place. And, like, life happened, and I didn't wind up getting to go, things.
yeah.
And, like, then, later on, coming to shows and stuff, like, getting to meet Bob. And a few years ago, I told Bob that story. And he was like, well, you're here now, And I was like, thank you. And it's like, it is. It can be. It is what it is. But like, I'm a huge Bob Clark fan. So I mean, he's a legend. So.
Cool.
And you had kind of had your own Bob Clark thing that you had told me about, something with World's First Picture or something that you talked to him on the phone when you were working out at Prehistoric.
Are you talking about the piebald?
Yeah,
retakes?
I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I like to
Something you
brag that I was the first person outside of Bob Clark to see a picture of the first captive hatch piebald.
that's
And
what it was.
nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but nobody believed that was going to be a genetic trait back then because it didn't look right, But yeah, it was only because I intercepted an email from him to Jay Brewer.
Opening other people's mail.
Exactly. Brian.
I've been able to pull life lesson experiences from people that, and I feel fortunate to be able to do this with people that I don't even know. Like,
Well, that's true wisdom. You don't need a giant mega personality to look up to if you can learn from a bee on a flower kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can learn something from being a flower, but I mean, spoken word, learning like little words of wisdom from
Okay.
folks.
Give me an example.
bums under a bridge, even like they're like guys living under a bridge that have no place. I've learned lots of things that I believe are important from guys like that. You know, even if they didn't make what even for themselves what would be a successful life, I don't think, necessarily, but they still had something at least to pass on as far as words that could inspire. I can't dredge up a specific example at the moment, but
I can.
Can you?
Yeah.
Please.
So, everybody that knows me really well and knows me personally knows that, like, for a long time in my life, I had a huge crisis of faith. You know, I had a huge chip on my shoulder and, like, lived in a negative space a lot. And there's a man, I'm not going to say his name, but he's just an old carpenter. And I worked with the man for 3 years before I ever really had a conversation with him. And it's through a very weird situation that he and I wound up having these conversations. So, like I said, we had worked together for 3 years, and I had wound up hiring a guy that worked for me for a day. And that guy that worked with me for a day wound up introducing me and this other man on a different level. And my life has 100% been changed by this old toothless carpenter that talked to me about life energies and, ways of harnessing yourself and looking for positivity and looking for balance in life, and how to take the negative aspect and realize that, without the negative side, you can't have the good, and without the good, you can't have. And it's completely changed my perspective in life. And so, just a random man that if you were to just look at him on the street, you'd be like, this man has nothing to offer me. But he's completely changed my life for the better.
There's a lot of people like that in Hawaii. Like
Tim O'Reilly's like that.
Yeah, there you go. That you'd probably think like, oh, this person's a vagrant. Can't
Right.
stumble in the bar just drunk. But lo and behold, they have like 3 different houses on the hills across the island.
Right.
Like,
Right, exactly.
What?
Well, you know what's interesting? You're talking about people that are, quote unquote, a nobody in like kind of pop culture's eyes or whatever. But I think we learn more from our failures than our successes. If someone's successful, everybody likes to ask them, what can I do that's right? Where did you go right? And I want to do the right thing too because I want to have success. But it's a much more profound lesson if somebody's like, you know what, this is where I went wrong. And it's rare to find because people don't like to be vulnerable that way. They don't like to be judged. And I think the reason why an old toothless carpenter, a bum under a bridge, is a good person to get that wisdom from, because I think each of us have it. But those people are no longer worried about what people think about them. They already assume people think the worst. And the rest of us are too afraid to share where we went wrong, which is too bad because we could really impact people if we were okay with that.
I definitely agree with you, and I think that there's a lot of people that without the, for lack of a better term coming to my brain, like trials and tribulations, that it may be self-inflicted. Like
It doesn't matter though. Yeah.
Right, but without that, they wouldn't have the successes that they have. They wouldn't have, and
Because it provided them
exactly.
Mm.
And by sharing that, well, I think it's 2 different ways though, Garrett. Like, by sharing that, are you going to help someone reach the success by sharing your negatives, or do you think that people have to experience that negative to be able to, fully understand and comprehend?
I can answer that question right now because I learned a lot of things not to do from the neighbors I grew up across the street from. I didn't have to experience a lot of the negative things they experienced from the actions they took. I was like, well, that's why you don't do that. And then another of, and that there, yep. But granted, it was across the street, so I could like actually see it and almost feel it.
Right.
Even though it wasn't me personally experiencing what was happening, I could watch
You can
it.
hear
and
the
be like,
screams and
hear the
yells.
screams. Could watch the splatters, see the, and be like, nope, not gonna participate in that activity in life.
Yeah, but you've had your own difficulties regardless.
Sure.
So to answer your question, like, I had it pretty easy growing up. We all talk about my dad's cool and all this kind of stuff, and we were fairly fortunate, you know what I mean? He made good money. My parents were great, you know. Had every good thing and no reason for anything to go wrong. But I definitely had a heavy dosing of darkness in my life, even like as a teenager. And one of the things that used to kind of bug me was that other people just seemed to have more physical hardships. And I just wish I had something to blame for my hardship, but I couldn't ever even explain why. And that's a scary place to be. So one of the things that I try to remind myself now that I've come out of that is not to, you know, blame other people. We have this thing where if someone's doing really good and they're happy about it or confident about it or, you know what I mean, cocky about it even, we try to bring them down a couple notches. You know what I'm saying? Like,
as a society.
yeah, well, that's why we all pick on Dave Kaufman.
Yeah, he's too tall.
Yeah.
Get
Right.
down here, Dave.
Exactly. Bring you down a little bit.
We're talking to you, Rattlers.
But no, there's yeah. I mean, it's great to learn from other people's mistakes, and if you can, it can save you a lot of pain. But I don't think there's a person that got out of life unscathed. I don't think there's a
One
single
of my favorite
one.
Guns N' Roses quotes, or they may have been quoting somebody else. And you'd be lucky to get out of life alive. Oh no,
Get out of life
they
alive.
were suggesting that maybe you could. You'd be lucky to get out of life alive.
Yeah, but no, I mean, you know, we all have our issues, and it was funny. My way of dealing with it was to artificially generate difficulty in my life, which is why I had during that time period so many adventure stories. Maybe hear all of my stories like past and stuff like that. Like I'll give a shout out to From the Ground Up podcast. They did an interview with me, and they're like, "We don't want to ask about Superdore as a business. I just want to be like, where the hell did you come from? You know what I mean? Like, what made you?" And they got the life story. So that's a good one for our listeners that want that. But I had this like emotional or depressional darkness.
Yeah.
And I had to like make it physical. So for me, like the first thing for that was like I started cutting. I was masochistic, and I would cut myself or cause myself pain or burn myself or do those kind of to kind of feel physical pain because it was easier than emotional pain.
Most definitely.
And then it kind of went from there, and all the crazy playing with crocodiles and all
I
that.
can connect a couple of things with that. I with your stories of Stan Lee comic books and the cutting thing, it wasn't anywhere related other than there. I did cut myself and I carved venom into my arm. As in the Marvel comic character with a sharp tip of a pen.
There you go.
I gave myself a tattoo. It wasn't masochistic. Well, I guess it was maybe a little bit.
Well, if you consider tattoos masochistic.
No, it wasn't
yeah.
a traditional tattoo by any means.
Well, and man, so
I forgot I did that. So you said that.
it's funny to me. I'm not comically funny, but peculiar funny that like you had, you know, like you said, you didn't really have that external darkness that other people could see, but you were dealing with your own things internally. And my best friend growing up, like I love this guy to death, and still to this day I love him to death. And I remember being a kid and growing up in the household that I grew up in, which was tumultuous and, you know, wasn't a super stable environment. And when I first started going over to his house and hanging out with his family, I honestly looked for something that was messed up. Like I was looking for their secret because I was like, nothing is this perfect. Like nothing. I've never seen a family like this. Like I've never seen an atmosphere that was so loving and true, and like, you know, this family's so close and like they really love, you know, the whole family is in sync and love each other. And like I had never seen that. And so
Did you find it?
I thought that no. And still to this day, like I can go to these people's houses, man, and like they embrace me and, you know, they love me. And like I had never seen that. And I thought there was some big hidden secret, you know, and there wasn't. Like I couldn't fathom that this, you know, picturesque lifestyle really existed because the other people in my life that I had encountered, that didn't exist,
Right.
and I'd never seen it. So it's interesting that you had to create not drama, but you had to create that for yourself to be able to expunge your inner darkness, because you didn't have that external. For when me, it was more of
I don't know if I did it because I didn't have that. I just had it, and I didn't have anything to blame. I didn't have excuse.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I felt messed up, and I didn't have an excuse for why I was messed up. You know what I'm saying?
Teenage angst.
Yeah, cause kind of I don't know.
Hey, hormones are a big deal.
yeah.
I mean, like stuff happened. We went through things. There's problems, but plenty of people went through way worse.
Oh, sure.
So
Well, sometimes emotional and mental problems can be more difficult than the latter. More than people maybe think or
Oh,
care
most
to admit.
definitely.
well, I'll tell you this: the people who are able to achieve the most, I think, unanimously agree. If you look across, it doesn't matter what kind of person or what they're doing, is that they set their mental state in a direction first, and then their actions and the universe follows. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
But
that's
there's a-
manifestation. That's you're manifesting what's happening.
Well, I mean, even just beyond that, like you will renew your life by transforming your mind.
Yeah.
So
Because
there's a
you're the master of your own
perception
reality.
change that needs to happen. Well, I don't know that I don't know that I buy like that I can manifest that tree to grow a little taller.
I'm
or
not
something
talking,
like
but
that.
you can manifest your own path, your universe.
Well,
like
here's the
it's-
thing: we can't necessarily change what happens to us, but we can definitely change how we react to it. And so, when you're talking about the mental side, can be harder if your brain is taking and your chemistry is taking you down a dark way. It's very hard to overcome that, even if you have relatively few trials, because that's driving you in a direction like a locomotive. It's very difficult to stop. But if you can change your perspective, it changes everything. And that's actually what happened for me. I was suicidal for years. I had multiple suicidal attempts, stuff like that. Never thought I would live this long. That's why I'm all busted up.
I had a girl come up my driveway the other day that was like that.
Really?
You guys both know my driveway. It was very odd to have this girl just come up our driveway. In that
It was
state.
someone you didn't know? Just a random suicidal person found a house and it was yours, huh? Wow. Tell me this story.
Yeah, how'd the conversation go?
Okay. So I put this on the vlog that it hasn't gone out yet, actually. I was coming back up the stairs, found that there was a box there, so I went to go grab it, and then I saw her coming up. She kind of she wasn't wearing shoes, and she was a young girl. Turned out she's about 24, and she had like stuff on the front, like she's a little bit dirty. She'd like come down the side of the hill or mountain from her house, where her parents live, where she lives with her parents. And she's coming up the driveway like out of breath, just like looking distraught and just not.
So she's like a neighbor gal,
Yeah.
kind of run away from home type
Right,
of situation.
right.
I got you.
And she's like, help me, I'm being abused. And I was just like, oh my God, what's
Whoa.
happening? I just went to her and was like, are you okay? Just like trying to assess like how she was. She's obviously walking, so I got her, sat her down in a chair. Just like, just come sit, like catch your breath. I was like, I'm gonna get you some water to like just sit here. But first, I made sure she could, because she was just like, just like that. And I was like, you just please just calm down, take a seat. I was like, you're safe right here. I was like, is anybody following you? And she's like, and I was like, oh shit. So I like make sure like I was like looking for make sure I had like a way if somebody's actually following this person and trying to hurt them like that. I was able to defend. This is where my family, all my family's home, everybody's inside. And so I was like, okay, let me kind of assess to make sure there's nobody coming up my driveway else right now following this girl. And if I need to take them out,
A dangerous
a
situation.
dangerous situation that I need to put an end to as quickly as
Jeez.
possible. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. There was nobody following her up my driveway. So I got her, calm down her breathing, get her some water. And, she said she has been suicidal in the past. She had spent time in 6 different mental hospitals. She was lucid. And I knew that's why I kind of said she wasn't just like some crazy person calling up out the creek, happened to come up our driveway. Like she was understanding that she was in a bad way. She had a little altercation with her parents, and she was still able to express that her parents are loving and she loves her parents, but it's just like she's dealing with this stuff. She's taking, medication, Xanax and Seroquel, I think it was what she called it. And there was just there had been a moment and it got a little rough and she had to run and her parents called the police and she's been in mental hospital like 6 different times and it's just not working for her. They're just throwing drugs at her.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah, I was getting to a spot where I got out of the water, we're calming down, we're talking about it, and she's like starting to she's like, I feel bad that I'm here. I don't want to be messing up. I said, you stay here as long as you need to. Like, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't feel like you're intruding here. You need some help. We're here to help you. You can sit and calm. And right about this point, a couple police officers come up the driveway. And immediately, like, I could feel the tension in the situation that I've just finished alleviating start building again. And I was like, oh man, how are we gonna do this? And they come up and they start asking me these questions. I'm like, dude, I guess you start to like getting more worked up again. I was like, I just calmed this down. I wasn't trying to get into a situation where I'm gonna try to tell these officers how to do their job, or like getting myself in a situation, with that. They're obviously armed and police.
You were thinking about beating them up.
Police.
No, I was thinking about like I mean, the fact that she had been through the system, all
Yeah.
this
Right,
number of times,
right,
And it's
right.
failed her.
and it's failed
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah, and luckily it was able to stay calm. They asked if and Hillary came down at this point. They asked if we would, go upstairs and give privacy. And I just ignored them. I was like, I turned to the girl. I was like, what do you want? Like, if you want us to go, we'll go and give some space. But if you want us to stay here, we're not going anywhere. Like, and she's like, and she was like, I just feel real bad. I feel so bad. I can't. It was like, don't feel bad. Like, you are welcome here. You don't have to go. Do not feel bad. If you want us to go and give more space, we will. But and we stayed. Long story short, we didn't go anywhere. Ended up having a conversation with the officers about and they're also well aware of how the system is failing people and that the state of mental health in the country. One of the officers just like, yeah, mental state is just abysmal. The whole situation is like the drugs are just
Probably
a band-aid.
more now after the last year.
Exactly.
Well-
But it still went and then more people in fire truck and ambulance and like all these men coming up in uniform, like ended up being like 8 to 10, and this surrounding this frightened, scared, verbally spoken. She's just frightened and scared little girl. I just felt so bad for her. I was trying to talk to the officers and keep a straight face and not fucking break down because I felt so bad for how this girl was clearly hurting and needed some real help to get her through what she was struggling with mentally, and how she was just not going to get it going like through this thing that she's been through already, a bunch of times. And I tried to do everything I could in the situation as far as like making sure she can reach back out to us and come. We can help her as much as we can. We have friends that are going through similar things that have had alternate solutions with success and getting out of those type of mental areas. And I hope that her parents reach out. Luckily, I know based on what the officers are saying, I know what street. I feel like I maybe just walk by and see if I can spot her parents and like just in case these guys didn't give me my card, like we're neighbors, we want to help wherever we can.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think that's the kind of circle back to the whole Stan Lee, you be the hero kind of thing. That's that moment.
Yeah. And man,
They're small moments, but they can make a big difference. That's what we're talking about here.
I'm by no means a doctor, and I have no medical background to tell anybody anything, but everyone that, I'm not afraid to talk about my past and the fact that, I will always be not an active, but I will always be an opiate addict. Like always, for the rest of my life, I'll be an opiate addict. And I've seen what legal drugs do to people. I know where my addiction started was from doctors giving me shitloads of pain pills when I was 18 years old, and just giving me all this stuff. But with benzos, obviously Xanax is a benzo. I've seen the destruction that benzos do to people. I've seen it firsthand. And benzos are very touchy to me because, I almost lost my family to benzos. I almost lost, Katie and my daughter to benzos and my entire family structure. And to take people that are having issues to take people that are having problems already and
give them an addiction.
to give them this certain addiction, because I've watched Xanax, and it's very emotional to me. I'm fighting back tears because like I've watched people that I love like go from taking this shit because they were going through some fucked up things from their past and trying to deal with this, to it causing them to fall under a table and drool. And if they fought through that, they were a completely different person. You can look in their eyes and their eyes are black, like a shark's eyes, and dead, and they're not who they are. And you're just feeding all this chemical poison to people that are searching for help. And we have to, as a country and as a people worldwide, like the more we can bring up mental illness and talk about it without the stigma and without, the bullshit connotation, and truly try to help people and find methods away from just jamming, poisons down people's throats that are changing who they are and changing everything about them and putting them in a worse situation than they started. Like the world has to find a way to do this, and the more that it's talked about, the better.
Yeah, I agree, and it goes back to the simple times. I mean, if everybody's made it a little simpler, what do all the doctors take? The Hippocratic Oath. What was one of Hippocrates' big thing? Let thy food be thy medicine. That seems pretty simple, but gets real complicated all of a sudden.
Most definitely.
Well, the whole food scenario is complicated right now. That's another podcast.
Yeah.
Cheating vegans.
Man, I feel like we dove deep in the shallow end, then we went deep, and then we went deep, and then we went deep. Can we get like lighthearted for a second? Is that possible? Can we do?
I saw a Puerto Rican boa.
I didn't see a Puerto
CITES
Rican boa.
won.
You told me you saw an apodora,
I did.
and I didn't know it was there because I've been looking for an apodora for a while now.
Did you know you were supposed to tell him if you saw an apodora?
Yeah,
Did you put everything on
everybody
notice?
knows they're supposed to tell me if they see an apodora.
Well, I told you.
A little too late, Garrett.
I told you wouldn't know. Yeah, there was an apodora for the layman's is the Papuan python, like the Papuan olive python. They used to call them olive pythons, but there was one at the show. It was on Friday.
Yeah.
And that, again, come on Friday. You sell the cool stuff. So here's the crazy thing, and some of us were talking about this. Blake Wilson and I were talking about this a little bit this weekend.
Was Blake here?
Yeah.
I didn't even see him once.
Yeah, well, he doesn't care to come to your booth and talk
I
to you.
guess not. Thanks, Blake.
Blake Wilson. Anyway, yeah, we were talking a little bit, just kind of like animals that fall in and out of trends and stuff like that. And apodora, they're very trendy right now. Everybody wants them. That's why you can't find them, and they're rarely bred in captivity. But
Riley had told me 2016 was the last time they were produced in the United States.
okay, sure, whatever. I believe that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but this one was definitely younger than 2016. So it must be
Captive bred or wild caught?
I mean, that's supposedly a captive bred show. There's a lot of not captive bred stuff there. So I'm assuming it's wild caught. I suppose it could be imported because usually with the wild caught stuff, they look pretty poor shape, and then they're usually kind of cheap too. This one looked great, but it was very expensive. So maybe someone I don't know. I don't know the apodora scene, but apodora is something like if I think about buying a Papuan python, I think about $400, $500, maybe $600 because they're popular. No, this thing was $3,000.
Yeah.
3 G's. And you can say that's too expensive, but I'll tell you what,
It's gone.
it's sold.
No, I won't say. I will never say anything's too expensive because if somebody will buy it, then
No,
it's
I mean
obviously
people that there's always you're right. Well, to that
if it's
point,
too expensive, it won't sell.
right. To that point, I saw like a maybe 7-foot green anaconda female.
I saw it.
It was like $3,500.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, and that's to me is like a classic example of people like, "What? I could buy them for $99," and maybe they can still pull up some old ad that a website that doesn't even sell reptiles anymore didn't pull their website down from 15 years ago or whatever. But people complain about stuff that used to be cheap and is now expensive. But I'm sorry, guys, that's the way of the world. Things come and they go and they change. And things that were very expensive, like air travel, is now relatively affordable. You know what I mean? To go back 80 years and go buy a plane ticket. On the other hand, things that were cheap, like
Gas. Thanks, Biden administration.
are now very expensive.
Sorry.
Anyway. Yeah, no, I mean, but it goes round and round and round. But that's a good example. Look at lumber prices right now. You try to buy something, like any kind of materials.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean,
related.
guess what? There was a global pandemic, and now it happens. Or a border to a certain country closed. And you know what? You all that complain about them being expensive, you're not the ones that cared enough to breed them when they were cheap. So you should.
Plywood boards?
You should. No, I'm talking animals.
Plywood boards are like $65,
Yeah,
right? Like for a sheet of plywood.
Breeding them properly so we can have them in captivity.
wish
You
would
breed trees, Dodo.
More trees. We need more trees.
Now,
a
y'all
lot.
be careful
Thanks a
when you're
lot,
breeding your
Madagascar.
plywoods.
Don't get a splinter.
Oh my god.
Zach Nava Reptiles.
I don't have
Have
any.
some more of your scotch.
Oh, you're
You don't like your sponsored scotch?
stingy. You're stingy. I do.
It's not bad. It's good.
It's good scotch.
Yeah, it's good scotch. There's no doubt about it.
Balvenie
It's fantastic,
Caribbean
actually.
cask.
But ain't no old Carter Batch 4.
Oh, bourbon snob over here.
He is a
I used
bourbon
to be the
snob.
opposite for such a long time. Like, oh, you're drinking bourbon? I got scotch.
I've got scotch.
Well, shoot.
Yeah, it's kind of like prices. Hypocrisy goes around and around and around.
I feel like I want to go find the rest of our crew and apologize to them for kicking them out of the room, even though I told them they should be quiet if they want to stay in here.
That's your excuse for being a dick.
It is.
I,
It was prefaced, so you can't feel too bad.
okay, yeah, I did say please if you're not can't keep quiet. Anyway, I was getting distracted. I was trying to listen to what you were saying, and it was just super distracting.
Searchable as reptiles.